Greetings, greetings, family. Sister Shanice in the house. How you doing? I hope you've all risen in power. I hope you have risen in strength. I hope you have risen to accomplish much today. Welcome to the first show of 2026. Hopefully it's going to be a great one for you. So if this is your first time visiting this platform, the Sister Shanice Show, welcome. I'm delighted to have you on board. At the beginning of my show, I always post a link. So forgive me as I look down and I'm actually posting the link to family members and friends because this is how I get you, my wonderful family, to know where you can find me on YouTube. So looking forward to a really interesting conversation with you today. I've got two breaking news stories that I'm going to be focusing on today. Burkina Faso and Venezuela. Wow, family. So much has been happening on the bigger geopolitical stage. And, we're going to be looking into some of these stories this evening. And I will also be posting the link a little later in the show today. And what that means is that if you would like to join me in the conversation today, you will be welcome to do so, and you'll be able to do so via the link, okay? So I'll introduce the topics, and then I will be posting the link when I open the show so that you can join me in conversation today. Really looking forward to some of the family members jumping on board and sharing your views, thoughts, and opinions with me today. Certainly don't want you to be leaving me hanging on my own here on the show today because, normally I will have some guests and I'll interview the guests and they'll do most of the talking. But today, you are going to be my guests. Those of you who decide to actually tune in and jump on today's show. So just remind me a little later on the show, I'm actually going to be posting the link. So get ready. Now, you won't have to turn on your videos if you don't want to do so. You can just come live via audio, okay? It'll be great to hear your voices as well. So as I said, get yourself ready. We're going to be talking about the attempted coup in Burkina Faso, and we're also going to be delving into and having a conversation about what's going on in Venezuela. Big topics for conversation today, family, and really looking forward to you, joining me on these really important topics that we need to be focusing on. Okay, so I'm just, as I said, sending out some of the links. Please do assist me in doing so. Assist me to send out the links as well to our family members. If you have family members, if you're part of WhatsApp groups, please do share the links in those WhatsApp groups, those family WhatsApp groups, and those friendship WhatsApp groups, okay? As I said, these are conversations that we need to be having as a community because, wow, family, there is so much that's going on the bigger international stage, and we need to make sure that our voices are heard, okay? Because the powers that be, you don't know how they operate. If they don't hear from us, they take our silence as, acceptance of what's going on. And I don't know about you, but I certainly do not give my consent to what's happening on the bigger stage at the moment. And I want to hear what your views, thoughts, and opinions are as well. You can drop your thoughts, you can drop your views, your opinions, and your comments in the chat, okay? So make sure you log on via your YouTube channel so that you can share your thoughts and opinions, and so that you can participate in the conversation that we're going to be having in the chat today. Looking forward to it. As I said, we're going to be delving into some breaking news stories, family. Some breaking news stories. Some of you may be aware, some of you may not actually be aware that there was an attempted coup attempt, another attempted coup attempt in Burkina Faso. So we're going to be talking about that because, you know, the authorities there have successfully managed to avert and neutralize that coup before it actually unfolded. According to official sources, security services moved swiftly after uncovering an alleged plot to overthrow our beloved president of Burkina Faso, none other than Ibrahim Traore. And there were elements inside of his own camp that were actually involved in this coup. Isn't it always the same? We have these treasonous, treacherous ones, you know, within the inner circle, you know, who are easily bought. And let me look at the amazing works, you know, that Ibrahim Traore is doing in his country for his people. And you know, yeah, if some underhanded money grabbing individual was to come in, that they would stop all of the great works that's going on. Anyway, most of the suspects, those within and those outside the borders of Burkina Faso, you know, fortunately were actually caught. They were caught. So we're going to be reporting on that and having a conversation about that today. Okay, family? Because we also understand, even though the names of all of the suspects still haven't been released and haven't been identified at the moment, what we do know is that there was a particular individual involved. This is Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba. So we're calling Damiba. He was a former Burkina Faso president who was removed by Ibrahim Traore back in 2022 because, you know, his very short reign, during his short reign, it was very obvious that he wasn't going to be doing anything to neutralize the terrorists that were operating on the borders. It was obviously obvious where he was aligning himself. He was not. It's reported for the people, and so he was removed, and we saw the joy and the jubilation when he was removed and when Ibrahim Traore actually took up office in his stead. So you know, this man, this individual, clearly has still been hovering in the background there and has been plotting and scheming to try and overthrow President Ibrahim Traore. But, you know, what is just extraordinary, in my opinion, about this great man is the intelligence information that he has available to him and has made available so that he can intercept these coup attempts. Really brilliant soldier, strategist, intelligence operator. I mean, he's the full Monty, and he needs all the support he can get. Okay, family. So this is what we're going to be doing on the show today. We're going to be having a conversation about that coup attempt, and I want to hear from you about that as well. And also going to be having a conversation about what's going on and what's been happening in Venezuela. Wow, wow, wow. I've got some video clips I want to play for you there as well. We're going to talk about why the US really invaded Venezuela. What is it really all about? You know, they've made all sorts of claims about drugs cartels and all kinds of claims, you know, but what is it really about? I think most of us know what it is really about, but we're going to be having that conversation because, you know, I want to hear your perspective as well. It's okay for us to have you know, different opinions and thoughts about what's going on, and let's have that conversation. So looking forward to you joining me where we're going to be talking about what's going on in Venezuela. So I'm just posting the links at the moment. And welcome as you come through the door. Let me go over to YouTube on my computer. Let me see if I've got some of you already joining me. Yeah, come on, drop your comments in the chat. Yeah, I want to know if you are there. Certainly hope that you are there and that you will be joining me in the chat. Want to hear from my family members. So let me just give you a moment or two to come through the door, family, and join me on this wonderful, wonderful Wednesday evening. Okay. Let's hear from the family members. So just posting a link, as I said, and just spend just a moment or two more to do that. And then I'm going to be firing on all cylinders and certainly hope that you will be ready to join me as soon as we lift off, okay? Looking forward to our conversation. As always, it's going to be an interesting one. Okay, so just sending it out to a couple more of my family members who do like to join me on a Wednesday. And want to make sure, as I said, that they've got the link. Sometimes when I forget to send them in, oh, I want to watch you live, you know, should send the link out. So certainly doing my best to get the link out. But, you know, it means multitasking. And so if you can assist by sharing the link, I would much appreciate that. Okay. So let's post to this one. Okay, the answers for it, very new, and also, yeah. So I think that's enough sharing for now. So I'm gonna send it to our beloved brother over there as well. Okay, family. Yeah, so how has the new year been for you? How has it started? I certainly hope that it's been a good one so far. It certainly has been for me, so I'm absolutely delighted. You know, I survived to see the beginning of another year. We all, when the year starts, hope that it's going to be a really great and constructive year. And, you know, have you made New Year resolutions? Have you made plans for 2026? To be honest, I haven't as yet. Normally I do. I've got some ideas at the back of my mind about some things that I want to do. I just haven't committed it to paper as yet, and we know how important it is for us to do so. So at some point, yeah, I will be committing my plans to paper. Have you already done that? Have you already committed your plans to paper? Have you already started developing action plans? And have you already broken down, you know, those action plans into, you know, key points that will enable you to deliver your actions in small bite-sized sizes? Because obviously, you know, when we set our goals, they might be quite huge, they might be quite big, and we don't want them to be too big and too daunting, do we? We want them to be manageable and achievable. So family, I am ready to kick off. Certainly hope that you are holding on to your seats and you are ready to join me today. Let me put this watch over here on my phone to see what's going on so I can go into the chat. Oh, wow, we got Sister Afrijamo in the house. Rise up, Sister Afrijamo. It's so great to have you back. We've missed you. Yes, we have. And we've got Reparations in the house as well, saying greetings. Oh, welcome. Good to have Reparations Nation in the house. Rise up. Family, if you're in the house, you can just drop a message in the chat and I will then pick up your comments, pick up your messages, okay? And we'll call them out, read it out as we go along. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Sister Shanice. This is the Sister Shanice Show. And I'm a graduate of Dr. Clyde's Phenomenology Research Program. That is an African-centered research course that encourages those of us who are interested in African history to delve into and to research our history from an African-centered perspective. And so that's what I've been doing, researching our history from an African-centered perspective. And as a result of doing that work, I've written this book called Hidden in the Shadows of Ancient Britain, an erased African history restored. When I started doing the research, family, I uncovered the fact that we have at least 44,000 years of history in Britain that has been hidden from us as Africans. Get a copy of that book, family. You will be blown away when you realize how much history we as a people have in Britain. And when you realize, as my sources will prove in my book, that there is archaeological evidence, anthropological evidence, there's scientific evidence, there's linguistic evidence, there's so much documented evidence as well of our ancient history in Britain that is just totally excluded from the national curriculum. Can you believe it? So anyway, I've been doing the research and I've uncovered a lot of that from the works that I've been doing. It took me about 3 years or so of research to put it all together, and then about a year of writing it all up. So it's all in there for you in the book. You don't have to do the years of research. You don't have to find all of the sources. I found the sources for you. Just acquire the knowledge, because once you've got that knowledge, family, it will empower you. Knowledge is powerful, you know, and as they say, once you've got knowledge, you've got confidence, and with confidence, the battle is already won. So that's just one of my books. I've got a number of other books. You can go to Amazon and grab a copy of any one of my books. They're all a great read. And or you can, if you're in the UK and you know Brother Emmanuel, he actually has copies of some of my books. Okay, so really look forward to you getting a copy of the book and getting in touch with me to let me know that you had that. And do remember as well, if you've got some young children in your family, we know all too well what the curriculum does to our children. And so it's up to us as parents, as aunties, uncles, and adults in the community to empower our children. And so one of the books that I've written is entitled The Brave and Magical Story of Queen Scotia. Queen Scotia is whom Scotland was actually named after, a real beautiful African princess who married a real handsome African prince who also became a king. So if you want your children not only to idolize white princes and princesses, but to see themselves as princes and princesses, get a copy of that book. Beautiful illustrations in that book. I taught myself a number of AI-typed image makers so that I could create some of these beautiful illustrations for you and images in that book. And so get the book, The Brave and Magical Story of Queen Scotia, and have your children, you know, see themselves in the beauty of which they really are, that mainstream society is not going to be doing. Okay, we do all of this work because we want to share the knowledge, impart the knowledge, and empower our community. There's so much that's been hidden from us. There's so much that we just don't know because the mainstream doesn't want us to know it. So, you know, like ones like myself is out there doing the works. Just grab a copy, get the knowledge, and at the same time, obviously, support the works. There's so much, oh my gosh, that we need to learn. All righty, so enough said about that book there, and hopefully that's given some of you a bit of time to come through the door as well. And when you do, please remember to give me a like, to share the link, and to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Yes, please do. Oh, rise up. We got Teresa in the house. Great to have you in the house. Happy 2026 to you and to everyone in the house. I certainly hope that it's going to be a great one for every single one of you wonderful viewers, subscribers, and those who likes the show. Hope it's a great one and that all of your dreams, aspirations will come to fruition June 2026. Rise up, rise up. We got the Don Dread in the house. Great to have you in the house as well. He's saying Battersea is in the house. Yes, great to have Battersea in the house. Afrijamo is watching us from Ghana. Great to have Ghana in the house as well. Rise up, rise up. She's saying, well, Sister Shanice, how are you? It's good to hear. Good to hear the YouTube from Afrijamo. Great to have you in the house. Yeah, you can drop your messages in the chat, just like Sister Afrijamo, Teresa, and Don Dread. And of course, Reparations Nation has done. Right, so as I said, what I'm going to do is a bit of a presentation first of all. Going to raise the topic for conversation, and then I'm going to drop the link in the chat so that should you wish to do so, you can join me by audio or by video. All right, so I've got two topics for conversation today. The first one's going to be Burkina Faso. Then we're going to open it up for a bit of a conversation. Yes, I'd given Nana the link earlier, and I can see he's joined me in the house, so that's awesome. So we'll bring him forward in a little while after the first presentation. And then we're going to have a conversation about Venezuela. And again, I'll open open up for you to join me in having a conversation about that. I've got Nana Prophet in the house. Do you just want to say hi and greet the audience, Nana?
Yeah, Maha to everybody.
Hotep, beloved Prophet. How are you doing?
I'm recovering.
Our beloved Prophet's been a little under the weather, but good to hear that you are recovering. And thank you so much for joining me this evening. All right, so I'm going to do a bit of a presentation and then we're going to open up so that we can discuss this. Is there anything that you want to say by way of opening to greet the audience?
No, my sister, I'll let you do. You're more than capable.
Thank you so much. Okay, great to know that I've got Prophet in the house joining me for our conversation today about Burkina Faso and also Venezuela. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share the link. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen. That's what I'm going to do. And as I share the screen, all right, let's get all the things set up right. I wonder if this one will work. Let me share this as a background. There's got all these features, but you know, it's good to try some of them. Sometimes they work great. If not, and I get kicked out, I'll be straight back in again. Okay, so let's get this right. Portion of the screen. There we go. Okay, so you should be looking at my first slide that's saying breaking news stories. Okay, hopefully that's the one that you are seeing there on your screen. Let me just see if it comes up on my phone. Breaking news stories. We're going to be talking about Burkina Faso. We're going to be talking about Venezuela today. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me in advance. So in the top left-hand corner of that slide there, my left, is my new logo. I hope you like it, Sister Shanice show logo. And just underneath you can see the great man himself, Ibrahim Traore. We're going to be starting off the conversation by talking about him, and then a little later we're also going to be talking about, you know, the kidnapping of Maduro of Venezuela, the president of Venezuela. Wow. So for those of you who don't know, there has been, yes, yet another coup attempt in Burkina Faso. Fortunately, it has been intercepted, it has been neutralized, and that is because of the intelligence information that our young beloved brother Ibrahim Traore has set up in his country, because we have had a history of so many of our greats who have been assassinated. We all know, do we not know, do we not, family, that when we as a people find a great leader, the wicked, evil capitalist system and those in the positions of power decide that they want to take out our leaders. So when we hear about these coup attempts, yeah, we have to take them very seriously indeed. And we have to talk about them. We have to condemn, the attempts of these external forces to destabilize our country. We cannot keep our voices silenced about it. So fortunately, in Burkina Faso, their security services actually moved in very, very quickly and were able to uncover, this plot that not only involved external forces, but also involved members within Burkina Faso itself. And this is, a really troubling pattern, because, the powers that be and those wicked ones outside of the country that wants to destabilize well-run African countries can't do so without the help and assistance of treasonous, treacherous Africans. And, we have these individuals among us with this trait, this treasonous trait, and we can see the pattern of this throughout our history. But fortunately, more of our people are learning from history, and that's certainly the case of our president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore. As you know, he's well aware of his history. And this is why the knowledge of history is so, so important, because it tends to be the same game that's played over and over again. And if you don't learn the game, if you don't learn how your enemies conduct their business and how they go about doing their business to undermine, to destabilize, to cause war, disruptions, assassinations, and everything, if you don't learn all of this, family, and you find yourself in a position of power, then you yourself will become a victim. So in Burkina Faso now, while most of the suspects haven't been named as yet, there has been one individual who has been identified, and this is Damiba. This is Burkina Faso's former interim president. He was removed from power back in 2022, and he was removed because, there was outrage from the public, from the citizens of the country, because of his failure to act and to deal with the terrorist violence that was happening within the country. And there was reports and claims that, some of the others that were involved were key figures within President Ibrahim Traore's security circle. Can you believe it? These key figures within his security circle, yeah, they can see what's happening in the country. They can see the love that the people have for their president. They are witnesses to the great works that's happening in Burkina Faso. But yet, obviously for money, obviously for power, they got involved in this threat to try and remove their president. So you've got members within his circle. You've got this key individual, Damiba, outside in Togo, who was orchestrating this whole thing. But their plan to destabilize the country, along with apparently an extremist group called JNIM, failed. I mean, these people were so desperate. This Damiba was so desperate to seize power. It is alleged that he went into building up a relationship with an extremist terrorist group that's linked to Al-Qaeda. This terrorist group has been involved in committing the most heinous crimes up and down the borders of Burkina Faso. And this is the one who he's allegedly, worked in partnership with to try and bring down the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore. Wow, wow, wow. These are extraordinary times, people. And there are individuals who are prepared to go to extraordinary lengths for power and for money. Fortunately, Burkina Faso's intelligence services knew in advance what was being planned, when it was going to happen, how it was going to happen, and who by. And this is what is required. We need presidents who have military knowledge and expertise, who know and understand the importance of intelligence, who invest in intelligence operations, in training their people so that they can stop these sorts of incidences before a shot is even fired. So we want to have that conversation today about the importance, family, of intelligence capabilities. We need to blow this up because, other African governments need to learn the lessons from Burkina Faso about the importance of intelligent capabilities. Unfortunately, our leaders who we had back in the early 60s, the great Thomas Sankara, Cabral, all of these great leaders who were assassinated back in the day, they didn't, unfortunately, have the level of intelligence information that they have now. Even Patrice Lumumba, even when he was told, that the man who he saw as his brother was plotting against him, he didn't want to believe it. And this is, sometimes it just hurts so much to know that the person who's the closest to you, who you can find him, who you believe is your brother or your sister, actually turn out to be the traitor. Some of us find it too hard to believe, but we have to learn from history that the external powers that be that want to come in and take over your country and have access to its minerals and resources will normally try and get to you through the ones closest to you. So we've had, decades of coups, decades of assassinations. Has Africa learned from that era? Burkina Faso certainly has. Has the rest of Africa learned from that era? And we know only too well who the beneficiaries would be of the instability and that would come after any coup or any assassination, and what that's all about. So we know that there are those out there operating in the shadows, engineering all of what we're seeing being played out on the main stage. So let's have a look at what some of the newspapers were saying. So we've got the North Africa Journal going with the headline, Burkina Faso faces new security tensions amid coup allegations. Yes, they're reporting that Burkina Faso experienced a sudden spike in political and security tensions overnight in early January, with coordinated public mobilizations in Ouagadougou and Bobo Dioulasso, following warnings of a possible attempt to destabilize the country's transitional authorities. It was during the night where the warning went out and crowds, the citizens gathered, at the major intersections and in the public squares. They were prepared to give their life for their leader, family. This is the love that the people of Burkina Faso has for their leader. As soon as the warning went out, the people flooded the streets. They came into the public squares. The cities was alerted across social media. The warning went out of this potential coup attempt, and they put their lives on the line to protect their president. And so what should have been clear to any individuals that were planning to try and do that coup is that they would also have the citizens of the country to deal with. So the citizens quickly were mobilized into large groups. There were civic groups and organizations via their online networks that was putting out the information. The leadership, the military leadership under Captain Ibrahim Traore, they were put into position as well. The demonstrators presented themselves as a defensive presence, yeah, and they were there to deter any move to try and threaten Ibrahim Traore. And many of us may have seen some of those videos and heard the comments from some of those loyal citizens of him who were out there that night. At the same time that this was happening, there were several military installations in the capital that were placed on heightened alert. Security developments were visibly reinforced around key barracks, including the Babasi camp in Ouagadougou. According to residents, security services had reportedly been monitoring the situation for weeks amid concerns about internal dissent within the armed forces. Pro-government media outlets were reported a series of arrests linked to the episode, including military personnel suspected of involvement in plans targeting state security. These reports followed earlier detentions back in late 2024 of soldiers accused of complicity in actions against the state. Authorities have not publicly detailed the nature of the alleged threat or the evidence supporting it. But, you know, more has certainly leaked out since this was written yesterday, family. And we do know the name of Damiba, who was the transitional leader back in 2022, who's involved in organizing this plot from abroad and was planning to destabilize the country so that he could take up the position of leadership. What is wrong with some of these people, family? I need you to tell me what's wrong with some of these individuals like Damiba, who sees a country that's been very well run in the interest of the people. And we all know how hard and difficult it is to find a leader with such qualities who's prepared to sacrifice their life, but put their life on their line for the people. We know how difficult that is. And this individual who had the opportunity to do right by the people, but failed to do so because he would rather work in partnership with terrorist organizations, you know, and was out there planning to try and remove President Traore to put his same or what less self back into the position of power. These are allegations, obviously, you know, we're waiting for, you know, independent verification of all of this, but this is what we are hearing, family, that's been happening regarding the involvement of this named individual. So this is his picture here. If you're just joining me, family, welcome, welcome. Drop a message in the chat. Let me know that you're in the house. Okay, we're talking about the breaking news story in Burkina Faso. We got Sheriff S in the house. Rise up, Sheriff S. Good to have you in the house. We got Kilanji in the house. Brother Kilanji, great to have you in the house. He says, we must take our history more seriously so that enemies are known as enemies and enemies are never friends. That forgiveness should come easy. Yes, indeed. We need to know who our enemies are, because if we don't, we will continue to be entertaining people who we think are our friends, but are in fact our enemies. Rise up, Sheriff S. Good to have you in the house. He says, they say the last kicks of a dying horse are the most deadly. The horse is the West. That's why them are gone, sir. It's over for them. Rise up, Sheriff S. You know, brilliant comment there. Absolutely agree with you. Rise up, Loretta. Good to have you in the house as well. Saying, greetings, family. Make we pour some libations to keep our brother protected. Chart down Babylon. Africans are global superpowers rising up. Sister Shanice and Prophet Maduti. Rise up, Sister Loretta. great to have you in the house. And to those of you who are not commenting in the chat, but listening in, great to have you in the house as well. Please do give us a thumbs up, give us a like. It's totally free to do so. Two stories we're looking at today. Burkina Faso, the attempted coup, and then we're going to be talking about Venezuela. I'm going to be posting a link in the chat so that you can join me live should you wish to do so, and certainly hope that some of you will. And we do already have Prophet Maduti in the background, who's going to be speaking with me about this story, this breaking news story about the attempted coup in yet another attempted coup in Burkina Faso. So if you're just joining us, welcome, welcome. Rise up, brother Call Grant, another brilliant activist within our community doing great works. Big up yourself, brother Call. Good to have you in the house. So the authorities are reporting that there was another attempted coup attempt in Burkina Faso. This one was successfully averted and neutralized before a single shot was fired. Okay, a number of individuals have been arrested. Most have not been named, but we do know the name of one individual that has been publicly identified, and this is Paul Henry Damiba. He's the former interim president of Burkina Faso. He ruled very briefly back in 2022, but he was removed by Captain Ibrahim Traore because the people were totally opposed to this Damiba because of his failure to protect the civilians from the escalating terrorist violence that was happening at the time. And so imagine, yeah, he completely he had the opportunity, this Henry Damiba, he had the opportunity and he failed miserably. Yeah, the people campaigned to get him out. There was widespread anger because of his failure to protect his citizens from the terrorists. And he was a military man, so he should have had the expertise to do it. But, you know, as we know, there are so many presidents and leaders in positions of power who are working hand in hand with these terrorists. Can you believe it, family? But this is what we're learning. Leaders such as Tinubu, it's alleged, working hand in hand with terrorists, knows the terrorists by names, knows where they are located, where they are hiding out, know them to be able to call them to come to peace agreement conversations. You know, so we know that there are leaders who are working hand in hand with these terrorist organizations. Anyway, this particular individual is reportedly based in Togo, and he's the one that's been accused of coordinating this coup attempt with elements from inside of Burkina Faso. And their plan, family, was destabilization. But we have a great man at the helm in Burkina Faso, you know, and as our beloved sis says, we need to chant down Babylon. We need to, you know, call on whatever super force and source we call upon. You know, we need to call upon that source to protect this great man, because he is indeed a great man for this time. And I'm privileged and honored to be alive to see someone like Ibrahim Traore step up. Yeah, big man thing we are talking about. Yes, I know Ibrahim Traore. We talk about Ibrahim Traore. Big man things this is. You know, there's very few men who would be, or women who would be prepared to put their life on the line for their people. And he's prepared to do that. Yeah, let's remember, Burkina Faso, they have had to put up with years of brutal attacks by these extremist groups. Yeah, and one of the extremist groups, this JNIM, Jama'at Nasarat al-Islam wa Muslim, one long name, yeah, abbreviated JNIM. A United States designated foreign terrorist organization. It's really interesting how, you know, they know the US know all these terrorist organizations. If you was watching our show Last Strong, you will have seen the link that I provided to a website where the US has the names of all the terrorist organizations, who the leaders are, the size of the terrorist organization, how many soldiers they have, to what extent they're actually armed, where they're operating, who calls the shots. They know so much about these terrorist organizations. It's like, you have to be on the inside to have the level of information that they have. And then, of course, we've heard from one of the US's own senates a little while back, where they were accusing the US of using USAID to actually finance terrorist groups. Now, this is a claim that was never investigated. This is a claim by US Senate that should have been investigated, but hasn't been. It hasn't been investigated. I wonder why not. Anyway, this JNIM terrorist organization has repeatedly vowed, it said, to overthrow the government of Captain Ibrahim Traore. And this is the terrorist organization that it's alleged that Bamimbo was working with to try and eliminate Captain Ibrahim Traore, to overthrow his government, to take out his inner circle and to destabilize the country. And whilst causing all of that chaos, to then force his return to power. What a wicked, wicked plan. But as I was saying a little while ago, Captain Ibrahim Traore has highlighted for us the importance of having intelligence and security in place. And is this something we're going to be asking that all African countries need now to be doing, having intelligence and security in place, especially the Pan-Africanist governments, because had it not been for this intelligence and security, it could have been a very different story indeed. And so it was because of this intelligence that they were able to stop the coup. And so Burkina Faso, as one of its priorities, has this brilliant service in place, state-of-the-art surveillance. They were able to intercept, they were able to carry out the monitoring. They knew this was happening, and this isn't the end of their plan. These people, these terrorists, and these individuals who are working with the enemies of our people haven't gone to sleep. They're planning their next attack. Yeah, this is one in a series of attacks and attempted coups. These suspects have been arrested for this particular incident, but we know the enemies of our people are already working with and lining up others to try and come in and do what this group failed to do. So from a Pan-Africanist perspective, what more can we do? What can we do to save our Pan-Africanist leaders? I know some of you say we've got to pray, some say we've got to, chant down Babylon, we've got to call on the powers from the outerverse to come in and help in this situation. But what more can we as Africans do, family, to protect our great leaders? Yeah, there are terrorists, the enemies of the Africans. They finance terrorist organizations. They train terrorist organizations. They arm them. They give them instructions. I mean, these people are moving at a level that, we as ordinary citizens, somehow have got to try and stop. In Burkina Faso, we've got the citizens putting their life on the line by coming out on the street to try and, avert any kind of action being taken against their president. But, what more can we be doing, family? There's these extremist terrorist groups out there. There are over 50 of them I identified in my presentation last strong. And I also spoke in that presentation last week about the fact that war is a business, and that there are American companies in the main, as well as many other Western companies, that benefit hugely financially from war. And if there isn't war, then their investors are not going to be making as much money as they would hope to make. And so they cause these destabilizations, they finance these mercenary and these terrorist groups, because where there's war, they make money. This is a big, big, big problem, family. And, you know, they want leaders, that the sort of leaders that we would want to have in positions of power. You know, they take them out. You know, they take those leaders out, because these leaders would be working in our interest. So we want to rise up people like Samora, Rachel, Patrice, Lauma, Savalas, Olympia, Felix, Moumbi, Thomas, Sankara, Amir Bikar, Cabral, Savalas Olympio. You know, so many great leaders, family, that have been taken out. This is just a few of some of them. And so we know without a shadow of a doubt, we know only too well the reality of what can happen to our beloved leaders in the Sahel. Not to forget the leader of Niger, not to forget the leader of Mali, who are standing side by side. Rise up, Miss Kev. Good to have you in the house. You know, I'm going to get the link. There's a few of you in the house there. I'm going to get the link now and share it in the chat. Should you wish to join me in a bit of a conversation about Burkina Faso, the attempted coup, what you think we as concerned citizens ought to be doing. I want to hear your views, thoughts, and opinions. We've heard about the importance of intelligence and how it can prevent, you know, a coup from taking place. You know, all African, well, you know, all Pan-African governments, those governments that care for their people, should they not have similar intelligence security systems in place? You know, what should we really be doing with these former heads of state that want to then come and try and destabilize countries like that? You know, like what's been attempted in Burkina Faso. I mean, those are just some of the questions that I want to ask today. But we are lucky to have Nana, who's a bit under the weather, but he's still joining me today. So he's a bit under the weather, so he's off camera. But we are so looking forward to hearing your views, thoughts, and opinions. And Nana Prophet Maduti, welcome, Black beloved.
Yeah, Maha says. You know, let me first say, Sister Shanice, a brilliant presentation. You know, your work is outstanding. You know, and we give thanks for your hard work. It's, you know, a lot of people don't know what it takes to do that type of research, you know, and get that information, you know. But there's a few things that, you know, we should look at. You know, there's the obvious, innit? We know what they want. They want resources, and that's the obvious. But what's the other thing they want? What's the other thing they want?
You asking me? Oh, they want control.
Exactly. Dominance. You know, we're dealing with a sadistic type of people. You know, the general that did the coup before Ibrahim, what was the difference between his coup and Ibrahim's coup? The difference was his coup was that he wanted power to potentially continue the status quo. Whereas in Ibrahim's coup was to totally change it. We've seen many coups in Africa over the decades. And none of them, apart from Sankara, and, you know, because Patrice Lumumba, he was voted in, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, they, apart from that one with Sankara and that, you know, we have Mobutu. Mobutu, that coup was about keeping the status quo. Most of them about keeping the status quo. Very few about literally changing the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an elephant in the room that we don't talk about, you know, treasonous Africans.
Mm-hmm.
We've had them over the centuries. And it's a scourge on the development of African people.
True.
But what we must do is always give kudos to the greatness of our military who fight on our behalf.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to rise up Abraham and his entire intelligence team for filing another attempted assassination, because this one here was about assassinating like the entire leadership.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So it shows that, you know, them have a good intelligence organization. I always remember Dr. Abu stating that one of the things that we have to have is good African intelligence. Because this is how the enemy is able to defeat us on a lot of fronts. And as you know, you was explaining about the research you did on over 50 so-called terrorist organization that the imperialists know them, know their location, know all what they have. If you know all of that and them still dead, that means you must have fund them. It's got to be. You understand me? You know, so we know this. So with brother Ibrahim, Tinichi, Asimi, you know, them three brother there, I think that the fact that they are working together is widening their scope to widen their intelligence. You understand me? Because maybe if it was Burkina Faso on its own, he would have been destroyed already.
Yeah.
You understand me? So, and then he has other African countries who supporting him in the background, but them not overtly supporting him. If you understand what I say.
Yeah.
Because of certain things. So these are all the different dynamics that is and I mean, we really have to rate these brethren because they did their due diligence before they made the moves that they made. They studied their enemy. They knew how they would be coming at them. So they're able to preempt certain things. You know, remember say, you know, a 500 time them try to kill Castro, you know. A 500 time them try to assassinate Castro, you know, and couldn't kill him. Castro did a normal death and all them, something in him old age. You know, see it? So it shows us that the enemy is not as impervious as they make themselves out to be. Yes, they have better, more sophisticated military hardware. They control the air, they control the sea, the oceans, they control under the sea and oceans, and they control the land. You know, their weaponry is par excellence in killing.
That's for sure.
So if you don't have that type of artillery, then you've got to come with something else that can help you to protect yourself from that. And having intelligence is one of the greatest things, knowing when they're going to move. You know, anybody who play chess, great chess players, you know, think 10 moves ahead. You understand? So them think with them think for them 5 move and the 5 move them opponent will make. Some of them can think 20 moves, 10 for them 10 move and for them opponent 10 moves. You understand? This is what make them geniuses. And just like that, in this struggle of life that we have with these barbarians, you have to be able to predict them. And there are stories over the centuries, Hannibal Barca defeated, entire Roman legions. That was to the tune of 40,000 with 10,000 man, 100,000 with 20,000 man. You understand? And even till today, his military strategies are taught in the leading army universities in the world. You understand? So strategy is a key to protecting yourself against those that will seek to invade you and things like that. So we want to rise up the Burkina Faso people them for the love that they have for the leadership, not just for Toure. Toure is just the head figure, but he has a lot of good people around him, and that's what you need.
Yes.
You understand? And not just him, because him can't say everything. He have to have key people that he know he can trust.
Yeah.
And we want to rise up all of those key figures around him and around the leadership, because they're working in tandem with each other.
Ashe. Rise them up, rise them up. We celebrate you. We're standing with you from a distance. Sometimes I feel, what more can we do? But, by us talking about, the great works that they're doing, by celebrating them, by acknowledging the works, hopefully they'll hear the words of encouragement and support, and it will help to give them the fuel that they need to carry on, because, they're putting their life on the line, but we're talking about these terrorist groups who have vowed, to assassinate the leader, to overthrow the governments. Just imagine, you've got those powerfully armed and equipped, terrorists, on your doorstep, just waiting for an
you know what, Sister Shanice? Those people who they call terrorists, they are working for the real terrorists, which is the French. Take yourself back a few hundred years to 1791, when the French lost the greatest real estate in that time. Haiti was making the most money. The French was making the most money, and they lost that. You understand? And that was a kick in the French face. You understand? Because French was a superpower at the time. Remember, say Napoleon was the emperor them time there. You understand me? And so they couldn't live that down. You understand me? It's the same thing that's happened to them again. Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso was rolling them in trillions every cycle. I remember say when the information came out, the man them was getting a kilo of uranium for something like 50 pence and selling it on the open market for over 200 euros.
Yes.
I mean, you can figure out the percentages that's like 1,000,000% interest. And they were doing that for decades. Not including all the other minerals they were getting. You see, the Europeans don't pay for minerals. What they do, they come in and them say them are the sophisticated machine. So them bringing all the things to drill and excavate and all of them sitting there. See? But there's no production going on where the resources are. They take it away back to their habitats. They refine it. They turn it into iron board, kettle, car, aeroplane, and all these things, and sell it back to the people them where they get the resources from. For like a million times, 1,000 times what it costs them to get the natural resource. You understand me? I say. So, you know, they do it all over the world. Anywhere them can go and steal things. They are the master thieves. And they don't want to pay for nothing.
That's right. True talk, true talk.
You see me I deal with. So, yes, the terrorists, them are there. Yeah. But the terrorists is either working for the Europeans or they working for the Arabs. One of the two. You understand? Them are funded. You understand me? Because as long as they keep that territory called Africa destabilized, disunited, they will always get what they want. And if it comes a time where them fees them have to pay, I fool money them I use to pay them anyway. So them not pay still anyway. If you understand me, I say. Yeah. So, you know, we just have to look at we use history to antiquate what we're dealing with now. And France get a bloody nose. And them want to get them territory back. Because it's vital to the French economy. You understand? Those were French colonies.
And hear what as well? Them bringing them big brother, the US.
Yes.
Them couldn't front it. Them couldn't deal with it. So them bringing them bigger teeth in terrorist brother them, the US. And they're coming in now like the world bullies. So we're going to go on to Venezuela as well, beloved, because why, oh boy, another example of how the world bullies operate. Wow, Nana, Prophet, thank you for sharing your comments and enlightenment on that. We haven't been joined by anyone else. So, you know, let's go over to the next topic of conversation, which is going to be Venezuela. But, you know, if you want to join us, I have posted the link in the chat. You might want to join us after I just do a brief presentation on Venezuela. And I've got some clips to play as well, family, that you might find quite interesting. I certainly have one that Nana has sent to me. Whoops, hang on, I didn't do it. Let's stop share. I didn't do the presentation there. You know, wow, some interesting. This is going to be so insightful because, family, you know, there's organizations out there and individuals out there who are so concerned and have been speaking up and speaking out about what's happening in Venezuela. Let me just make sure I've got the right screen highlighted before I open up. Right, and I've got the sound optimized because I will need the sound for this particular one. Okay, present to view. So thank you for joining us for the first part. For the comments that you've got in the chat, family, I want to rise up. MK in the house. Yes, big up Dr. Clyde every time. My research tutor, and mentor, Dr. Clyde. We've got Netcha in the house as well from SNet Mahat. Rise up, rise up. And, you know, the link is in the chat should you want to join us after this next presentation. You've just heard Prophet Maduti sharing his views and thoughts on that. Some powerful pronouncements there. And we've got so much, as he was saying, to learn from our history over the last 200 years. And what our history certainly reveals to us in no uncertain terms is that although even if we're fewer in numbers, you know, we can beat these baddies. We can beat them. We've beaten them before. Hence why we're free today, and we can beat them again. We absolutely need to. Okay, so now we're going to look at what's going on in Venezuela, because this is really concerning to me, and I'm sure for you as well, because, you know, the US has gone in, captured the leader of Venezuela. I want to ask, what does this mean for Africa? Is this setting a dangerous precedent? What does it mean for the sovereignty of individual countries when, you know, another country can just go in, bomb up your private security, take you and your wife as leader and first lady of the country out of the country, and take them to an unknown, you know, probably underground vault somewhere where they're making a clone of you. Who knows what's going on in the meantime? Let's look and comment on what's happening. Rise up, Brother Zizi Way. I can see you're there. Thank you for joining us. I'll bring you in after the conversation, after this brief presentation on Venezuela. So for those of you who were so busy, you know, celebrating the festive season and the new year and maybe unaware of what's been going on, well, back on the 3rd of January, the United States attacked Venezuela and captured President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores. And this operation was entitled Operation Absolute Resolve. And it began around 2 a.m. local time when explosives were observed. The United States Armed Forces went into Venezuela, started bombing the infrastructure across northern Venezuela, and their force attacked the residence of Maduro in Caracas and took him out of the country and flew him to New York. They took him and his wife out of their bed at 2 a.m. in the morning. They came with explosives. A number of personnel were murdered and flew them out of their country to New York. This is what the US forces did. The United States government announced that Maduro and Flores had been indicted on several charges related to narcotics, terrorism, macro-terrorism, you know, so not Nagosa, but this is what they start. This was one of the claims. Maduro and Flores pleaded not guilty to the charges in a Manhattan federal court on the 5th of January. And the US President Donald Trump and his administration justified the operation as a law enforcement action with military support, that the president has inherent constitutional authority they're claiming to undertake. The Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez denounced the capture as kidnapping, and Venezuelan officials said at least 24 Venezuelan security officers were killed during the attack. The Cuban government said that 32 members of their military personnel and intelligence agencies were also killed during the process. Officials in the United Nations, the US, and other countries, as well as international law experts, said the raid violated the UN Charter and the Venezuelan sovereignty. Other reactions around the world included celebrations by some Venezuelan diaspora, but there were also equally some really large protests in support of Maduro. So, you know, family, this is what happened in just a few days ago in Venezuela. Donald Trump has been very smug about the whole thing. And, you know, we asked, well, why did he really invade Venezuela? He claims it was about drugs. Was it really about drugs? Also, we all aware not so long ago, there was also the claim, there was also the claim that, you know, it was to do with drug smuggling on the ocean. They were bombing some of the Venezuelan shipping vessels in the Caribbean Sea. Let's hear what is being said in this particular clip. Let me just turn this up a little bit. There we go.
Geopolitics. You can be an empire or you can be a debtor, but you cannot be both. For 80 years, the United States defied this rule. They printed the money and the world accepted it. They sanctioned their enemies and the world obeyed. They were the masters of the universe, but this week, the master had to go begging. In Caracas, the United States is doing the unthinkable. After years of trying to destroy Nicolas Maduro, after seizing his planes, freezing his accounts, and putting a $15 million bounty on his head, Washington is suddenly desperate to make a deal. Why?
So we're hearing that behind the scenes, while they're bombing while they're bombing the fishing vessels, claiming that these are drug smugglers, while all this huge propaganda was going out to try and condemn Maduro's, behind the scene, the US are actually desperately trying to negotiate with them, trying to persuade them now to give them their oil. So
there's a very old saying in geopolitics: you can be an empire or you can be a debtor, but you cannot be both. For 80 years, the United States defied this rule. They printed the money and the world accepted it. They sanctioned their enemies and the world obeyed. They were the masters of the universe, but this week, the master had to go begging. In Caracas, the United States is doing the unthinkable. After years of trying to destroy Nicolas Maduro, after seizing his planes, freezing his accounts, and putting a $15 million bounty on his head, Washington is suddenly desperate to make a deal. Why? Because the petrodollar is dying.
That's
Venezuela's oil to save it.
The dollar is dying.
The new Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, is facing a nightmare. He needs to borrow $3 trillion this year.
So they needed Venezuelan oil to save their sinking dollar. The dollar is crumbling, is collapsing, it's becoming worthless. They needed Venezuelan oil to save the American dollar after they spent years, seizing all of his assets, putting a bounty on his head, sanctioning the country. They've gone crawling back, begging him to save the dollar. Would you have saved the dollar? Yeah, what this modern day team of gangsters had to say after they invaded Venezuela and kidnapped the president of the country. Hear now what they are saying.
But I want to be clear about one thing. Nicolas Maduro had multiple opportunities to avoid this. He was provided multiple very, very, very generous offers and chose instead to act like a wild man, chose instead to play around.
So he's obviously now alluding to the conversations that they were having behind the scenes, with the president of Venezuela, who was not interested in doing business with these criminals, and this US officials turn around and say, oh, well, he had ample opportunity, but he wants to play the wild man. Who are the wild men in this? Who really are the wild men in this scenario? Anyway, listen to what this US official has to say here. Oops, sorry, put that. Here we go.
But I want to be clear about one thing. Nicolas Maduro had multiple opportunities to avoid this. He was provided multiple very, very, very generous offers and chose instead to act like a wild man, chose instead to play around. And the result is what we saw tonight. The other message here is the following. You have a guy, like many people around the world, they like to play games. You have a guy who decides he's going to invite Iran into his country, is going to, do the confiscation of American oil companies, is going to flood our country with gang members, is going to take Americans prisoner and try to hold them for hostage and trade them like he was able to do with the Biden administration. Basically likes to play games all this time and thinks nothing's going to happen. And I hope what people now understand is that we have a president. The 47th president of the United States is not a game player. When he tells you that he's going to do something, when he tells you he's going to address a problem, he means it. He actions it. I can tell you, I've watched this process now for 14, 15 years, been around it. Everybody talks. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. When I get there, we're going to do this. We're going to take. This is a president of action. Like, I don't understand yet how they haven't figured this out. And now, if you don't know, now you know. Because this is the way it's going to play out. And I think people need to understand that this is not a president that just talks and does letters and press conferences. And, you know, if he says he's serious about something, he means it. And this is something that was a direct threat to the national interest of the United States, and the president addressed it. This is a president of peace, by the way. I told you what I just said earlier. This guy had multiple opportunities to find his way somewhere else and figure out another. He could have been living somewhere else right now, very happy, but instead he wanted to play big boy. And so now, you know, he's got other sets of problems on his hands. And but I think the message here should be for the world. Look, the president doesn't go out looking for people to pick fights with. He's not, generally wants to get along with everybody. We'll talk and meet with anybody, but don't play games. Don't play games with this president's in office, because it's not going to turn out well. And so I hope that, I guess that lesson was learned last night, and we hope it'll be instructive moving forward.
Is that a message?
Wow, this is unbelievable, isn't it? Oh my gosh, as I said there, modern day gangsterism. The big gangster come in and it's like, well, you're going to turn over all your oil or else. And because he's telling them no, it's like, oh, he's playing the wild man. He had ample opportunities, they're saying, you know, basically he should just give over, you know, Venezuela's resources, you know, to the US. It's not, the resources doesn't belong to the US. But because he didn't give it over, they've gone in like gangsters, oh my gosh, and taken it. And now they're saying basically he should have listened to the warning. We were pressuring you. We were trying to coerce you into, you know, getting out the way. We were telling you, just go to the Caribbean and live somewhere nice, hot and sunny, you and your wife, you know, forget about being the president of Venezuela, you know, just leave us to plunder it and to do what we do best, you know, shackle people and keep them impoverished while we take all of the riches and you'll be all right. And because he's like saying no, and he wants to protect his resources for his people, you know, this man's like gloating over it. Well, what does this mean, as I've said, you know, for the whole of Africa and for the world, really? You know, this operation now has the potential to destabilize the Latin American region. And, you know, there are other major players that are involved. But when I heard him like gloating about what they had done and sort of saying, well, he had his opportunity, you know, we gave him ample chances and he wants to play the wild man or the bad man. Well, now he's got other problems to worry about. I'm like, wow, what kind of world are we really living in, family, if this sort of thing could happen? And not only have we got him gloating about it, but Donald Trump himself out there boasting about abducting the Venezuela's president and you know, just doesn't seem to care about what the rest of the world has to say about it. I mean, there was no real justification for it, using the excuse about the war on drugs and the war on terror. You know, it was just an excuse. We're hearing that the petrodollar was dying, the dollar was dying, and they were behind the scenes begging Maduro to allow them, you know, access to Venezuelan oil. But why should he, after they've sanctioned him, put bounty on his head, tried all sorts to cripple his economy, and then they want to come and do business with him? Would you have agreed? Would you have wanted to do business with that sort of US administration? And then look what they did. They went in, captured him and his wife, took him out of the country, and are calling it part of a law enforcement, counter narcotics, terrorism sort of effort to try and legalize their illegal actions. Oh my gosh, every leader in this world should be concerned about what's going on right now. And take a listen to this. So we were hearing about narcotics. We were hearing, you know, why the excuses why they were bombing the Venezuelan shipping vessels in the Caribbean Sea. You know, many people lost their lives as a result of that. Well, here is another US official speaking here. Let's hear what he had to say. Is this the real reason why they took out Maduro?
You cannot continue to have the largest energy reserves in the world under the control of adversaries of the United States, under the control of illegitimate leaders. We're not.
I mean, this is serious. So, I'm sorry. So I say, if the United States consider you to be an adversary, you are not allowed to have your own resources. Is that what's being said here? So if you're an adversary, you know, and if you're an adversary, if you're not allowing the US to exploit your resources, because these people don't want to pay a fair price, do they? You know, for the minerals and resources, Prophet Naduti was just reminding us about the pittance that they were paying Niger for their uranium. You know, the pittance, and then the colossal amount that they were making, that France was making on the open market. And this is what they want to do: exploit, exploit, exploit. And if you do not allow them to exploit you, if they do not allow you to control your resources, as far as they're concerned, you are an enemy of the US. Oh my days. Let's take a little listen to this.
You cannot continue to have the largest energy reserves in the world under the control of adversaries of the United States, under the control of illegitimate leaders. We're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be used as a base of operation for our nation's adversaries and competitors and rivals of the United States.
Wow, they've gone in, kidnapped the leader, the president of Venezuela, because they considered him an adversary. And as far as they're concerned, you cannot continue to have the largest energy reserves in the world under the control of adversaries of the United States of America. So they've gone in and taken control of it themselves. Wow, they've gone into another country, removed the president and his wife. This isn't the first they've done it. You know, they did it to Aristide of Haiti, remember? You know, went in and took him out. And quite often, as we was talking about before, they just assassinate the leaders altogether and then move in the puppet government. Wow. And after they went in and did that, we hear from Trump. And what does he say? He turns around and says, I mean, off at the back of the other one, saying that, you know, Maduro wasn't going to allow them to come in and take advantage and exploit their resources. Now, after the kidnapping, we have the situation where Trump is saying that Venezuela will be turning over up to 50 million barrels of oil to the US. They'll be turning over up to 50 million barrels of oil to the US. US Donald Trump has said that Venezuela will be turning over 50 million barrels of oil worth about $2.8 billion to the US. And this obviously happened after the military went in and removed President Maduro from power. Wow, wow, wow. The oil, they've said, will be sold at its market price. Trump posted on social media, adding he would control the money raised and use it to benefit the people, of Venezuela and the US, of course. So this confirms it. It was all about saving the dollar. It was all about getting access to their $2.8 billion worth of oil, the 50 million barrels of oil that they wanted. Trump went on to comment and say that his comments come after he said the US oil industry would be up and running in Venezuela within 18 months. and that he expected huge investments to pour into the country. Analysts previously told the BBC it could take tens of billions of dollars. So they're prepared to put that money in to get out, to save their dollar. Wow, these people are gangsters. But, you know, Venezuela was doing business with China. Where's China in all of this? Well, apparently China, who was the biggest buyer of Venezuelan oil, has condemned Trump's announcement, as well as the US's reported demands that Venezuela gives them oil exclusively to them. So they've come out and condemned all of this. But is that where it ends? ABC News has reported, citing unnamed sources, that Trump had told Rodriguez to agree to an exclusive partnership with the US on oil production and sever economic ties with China, Russia, Iran, and Cuba. Trump posted on Truth Social on Tuesday, "I am pleased to announce that the interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over between 30 and 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil to the United States of America. This oil will be sold at the market price, and that money will be controlled by me," says President Trump of the United States of America. Wow, wow, wow. Are we going to hear more from China, or are China going to accept this lying down? We know that China, you know, had a big agreement with Venezuela to access their oil. Where is China going to be getting this oil from? Are they going to turn around and start buying it from the US? What about Russia? They have been affected. Iran and Cuba. We've already heard from Cuba that, you know, over 30 of their personnel, their military personnel, was taken out in this attack. Why did the intelligence and surveillance not pick up that this was going to be happening? This is so slack. You know, this country, Venezuela, should have been on high alert. You know, they should have been expecting something like this to happen, should they have not? Because clearly behind the scenes, there were meetings, there were discussions, there was, you know, the terrorists were saying, you're going to turn over this oil or else. You better give us access to this oil, or else you better sever your ties with China, sever your ties with Russia, Iran, and Cuba, or else. They were threatening, they were intimidating, they were coming down hard on Honduras. And he's there sleeping, you know, in bed with his wife at the palace as if all is well. Did he not really, you know, overstand the enormity of the threat? Did he think that these people were playing? Did he think it was going to be business as usual? Well, here's someone who has come out and has just made it very clear to the world. If we as a people are not clear about the enormity of this outrageous act that has taken place by the US government, listen to Jeffrey Sachs, who puts it into perspective, and then let me bring you, our wonderful audience, into the conversation, should you wish to join me live on air. Here we go.
I now give the floor to Mr. Jeffrey Sachs.
Mr. President, distinguished members of the Security Council, the issue before the Council today is not the character of the government of Venezuela. The issue is whether any member state, by force, coercion, or economic strangulation, has the right to determine Venezuela's political future or to exercise control over its affairs. This question goes directly to Article 2, Section 4 of the United Nations Charter, which prohibits the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. The Council must decide whether that prohibition is to be upheld or abandoned. Abandoning it would carry consequences of the gravest kind. Let me offer some background. Since 1947, the United States foreign policy has repeatedly employed force covert action, and political manipulation to bring about regime change in other countries.
There it
This
is.
is a matter of carefully documented historical record.
Mhm.
In her book, Covert Regime Change, political scientist Lindsay O'Rourke documents 70 attempted U.S. regime change
70.
operations between 1947 and 1989 alone.
Mhm.
These practices did not end with the Cold War. Since 1989, major United States regime change operations undertaken without authorization by the Security Council have included, among the most consequential, Iraq 2003, Libya 2011, Syria beginning in 2011, Honduras 2009, Ukraine 2014, and Venezuela from 2002 onward. The methods employed are well established and well documented. They include open warfare, covert intelligence operations, instigation of unrest, support for armed groups, manipulation of mass and social media, bribery of military and civilian officials, targeted assassinations, false flag operations, and economic warfare. These measures are illegal under the UN Charter, and they typically result in ongoing violence, lethal conflict, political instability, and deep suffering of the civilian population. The recent U.S. record with respect to Venezuela is also clear. In April 2002, the U.S. knew of and approved an attempted coup against the government. In the 2010s, the United States funded civil society groups actively engaged in anti-government protests. When the government cracked down on the protests, the U.S. followed with a series of sanctions. In 2015, President Barack Obama declared Venezuela to be, and I quote, an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States. In 2017, at a dinner with Latin American leaders on the margin of the UN General Assembly, President Trump openly discussed the option of the U.S. invading Venezuela to overthrow the government. During 2017 to 2020, the United States imposed sweeping sanctions on the state oil company PDVSA. Oil production fell by 75% from 2016 to 2020, and the real GDP per capita declined by 62%. The UN General Assembly has repeatedly voted overwhelmingly against such unilateral coercive measures. Under international law, only the Security Council has the authority to impose such measures. On the 23rd of January 2019, the United States unilaterally recognized Mr. Juan Guaido as interim president, and a few days later froze approximately $7 billion of Venezuelan sovereign assets held abroad and gave the designated authority over certain of these assets. These actions form part of a continuous U.S. regime change effort spanning more than 2 decades. In the past year, the United States has carried out bombing operations in 7 countries, none of which were authorized by the UN Security Council, and none of which were undertaken in lawful self-defense under the Charter. The targeted countries include Iran, Iraq, Nigeria, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, and now Venezuela. In the past month, President Trump has issued direct threats against 6 UN member states, including Colombia, Denmark, Iran, Mexico, Nigeria, and of course, Venezuela. Members of the Council are not called upon to judge Nicolas Maduro. They are not called upon to assess whether the recent U.S. attack and ongoing naval quarantine results in freedom or in subjugation. Members of the Council are called upon to defend international law, and specifically the UN Charter. The realist school of international relations, articulated most brilliantly by John Mearsheimer, accurately describes the condition of international anarchy as the tragedy of great power politics. Realism is therefore a description, not a solution for peace. Its own conclusion is that anarchy leads to tragedy. In the aftermath of World War I, the League of Nations was created to end the tragedy through the application of international law. Yet the world's leading nations failed to defend international law in the 1930s, leading to renewed global war. The United Nations emerged from that catastrophe as humanity's second great effort.
Let me just pause it there. So you've been hearing this damning report about the US government and their use of their military powers in terms of foreign policy, the invasions, the regime changes, the wars that they've been declaring against so many different countries, the open warfare, their involvement in covert intelligence operations to undermine governments. You know, these are gangsters. It says in the chat, someone in the chat's called them pirates. You know, these people that just are going around the world like big bullies. And, you know, Jeffrey Sachs is saying that, you know, it's this type of activity that led to, you know, global wars back in decades ago. And, you know, there's been 70 attempted regime changes by the US since 1947. Let's open up for a conversation now and invite some of you, our wonderful audience, to participate. We heard from Nana Prophet a little while ago in relation to Burkina Faso. I'd welcome his thoughts on Venezuela, but I've been joined by Brother Zizaway as well. So let me bring in Brother Zizaway first, and then we'll go over to Prophet. And if you're in the chat and you want to join us, you can drop your comments in the chat, or you can come live via audio or video on YouTube. Rise up, Brother Zizaway. How are you? Take yourself.
I'm ready for revolution. Thank you very much.
Ready for the revolution. Rise up, rise up. Thank you for joining us, my beloved brother. What are your thoughts about what's been unfolding in Venezuela and Trump's declaration to be taking control of Venezuelan oil, and Jeffrey Sachs saying that it's a breach of the UN Charter? I mean, and we've heard from some of Trump's allies, some of his inner circle, saying, yeah, we told him to give us, well, there is oil, and he wouldn't. Well, now look what he's got to contend with. I mean, what are your views and thoughts on this, Brother Zizaway?
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to comment on Venezuela and Burkina Faso.
Go ahead.
First and foremost, we have to have the proper analysis and understand that we are at war, first thing. And we have been at war for hundreds of years. What we call the anti-people's class has been waging war against the masses of the people in the world, and African people in particular, and other people of color. And it has its roots in the beginnings of slavery and colonialism. We have to have a clear understanding of that and how that connection is there that goes way back to when the global economy was dominated by African people and people in what we call Asia and other places, and Europe was barely surviving, barely existing, and they imposed themselves. Eventually, they imposed themselves in the global economy. Fast forward to where they colonized Africa and been stealing Africa's resources and also waging genocide against not only Africa, but people in South America, as we call it, North America, etc., to create a system whereby one country can dominate the world. That is the United States of America. And looking at what's been happening, it's clear. America and Israel must be destroyed. These are the states that are committing genocide all over the world, and they have set up this system whereby one country can tell all these other countries that you can't trade with other countries halfway around the world. How do you have a system created like that? It's rooted in what happened hundreds of years ago. And fast forward to these world imperialist wars the United States set up global military structures around the world. After the so-called Second World Imperialist War, they have 800 military bases around the world, right? In Africa, they have 29. And every nation state in Africa has an alliance with the U.S. except for one. So these are the conditions we have to understand. And when you're in war, the first rule is to know your enemy. If we don't understand that, then we don't understand nothing. And we have this bad habit of getting into this hero worship, this cult of personality, because we banking on one person, like, for example, as great as Ibrahim Traore is, or Martin Luther King, or Malcolm X. We have to be able to build mass organization because we're at war. And when you're at war, you have casualties. This is not the first time this kind of stuff did happen. Look at what happened in the Haitian Revolution. They tricked Toussaint Louverture to come to France, and they killed him. But they still were able to carry out the Haitian Revolution. Unfortunately, one of those leaders sold out and compromised, and they made him pay reparations to France for all the so-called property they lost. Those people who you had pictures of, Amilcar Cabral, Patrice Lumumba, and others. You know, in Amilcar Cabral, he was the leader of the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde in that little country called Guinea-Bissau. He was assassinated. But guess what? They were able to carry out the revolution in Guinea-Bissau and bring Guinea-Bissau to independence. Why? Because they had mass organization. Toussaint built mass organization. So in the case of Burkina Faso, there must be mass organization built so that if Ibrahim Traore is killed, somebody else can step right up there. Just the same thing is happening with Hezbollah, Hamas, etc. They assassinate their leaders. Guess what? Next man up or next woman up. Step into the leadership position. But this is the key. We have to have mass organization out of a mass movement where people are constantly being politically educated, because we're in a war that is protracted. In other words, if people know what protracted means, a long-term war. The Vietnamese had to fight for 30 years to gain independence from being colonized by France and then the United States. But eventually they won. And Ho Chi Minh and the others, you know, they died before they saw independence. So this is what we have to learn in this struggle, in this revolution that we're involved in, is that, okay, they got Maduro and his wife, but guess what? They still got the Revolutionary Party still in power, the PSUV in Venezuela. And then when Castro died, oh man, they thought that the revolution in Cuba was going to fall apart, didn't they? Huh? They got a trick, didn't they? Because Castro and those folks in the Cuban Revolution built a mass organization that stays there and keeps the people empowered. The masses of the people have power. Just because Castro was the leader, everything don't revolve around Castro. So after he died, guess what? You still got the Cuban Revolution standing strong. See, so these are the kind of things we have to understand in this struggle, you know, and we have to educate our young people and build. And now on this level, we have to have an international, a globally coordinated struggle against global fascism. Because like I said, they got their military structures all over the world. They got a global alliance, a global strategy that existed ever since when they first started colonizing the world. And now they are in danger. And by the way, when you talked about the US dollar, several of the recent regimes that were overthrown were going to replace the US dollar with something else. For example, Saddam Hussein, who was a CIA asset, he was going to change to the euro. They bumped him off. Gaddafi was going to use the gold dinar. They bumped him off because they was going to the dollar was going to fall. Same thing with others, because this is tied into their power. When you have political power, that means that you can exploit everybody's resources and make billions of dollars off of them through the central banking system that they created. And so we have to study these things and understand this stuff. When Amilcar Cabral was at the Tricontinental Conference in 1966 in Cuba, he pointed this out to everybody, that the biggest problem we got in the African revolution is a lack of ideology, a lack of ideological clarity. That's our greatest weakness. Once we overcome that problem, and also once we get mass organization, we will be okay, and we're going to win regardless. They have no win. We're going to win this fight, but it's going to be a long fight, and we're going to lose people as we go along the way. Thank you so much for letting me speak. Ready for revolution.
Thank you so much, brother.
They can contact me, the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and the African Party for the Independence of Guinea, Cape Verde, if they want to learn more about the African Revolution. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You can drop your contacts, your email, however you want people to contact you in the chat, Brother ZZ Wave. Thank you. As he says, he's ready for the revolution. Brother Maduti, do you think it is the case, as our brother left off there, that we're still in a situation where there's a lack of ideological clarity? Do you think Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, for example, have a lack of ideological clarity, or are they clear about what their ultimate objective needs to be during these times? And maybe it's the other African governments who are unclear. He also talked about the military bases all around Africa as well, and the dangers that poses. And therefore, you know, we can't be hero worshipping. We've got to build strong, meaningful organizations, because basically these terrorists are on our doorstep. And if they take out, you know, as history has shown us they do, our leaders, we've got to make sure that we have more trained leaders ready to step up. Let's hear your views, thoughts on that, as well as, you know, the situation that has been emerging, as I've outlined in Venezuela, please. Nana Prophet.
Yeah, Maha-Otep and Maha-Otep to my brother. I would disagree with the brother about hero worshipping. You know, I think that's a Eurocentric vision and narrative. We don't hero worship. You understand? We respect our people that stand up for us. So I wouldn't say that we're hero worshipping the three brothers in the Sahel. We respect the tenacity of those people that stand up against our enemies. You know, we respect that. So I wouldn't say that. I would agree with him that we got to organize, and we do organize on many different fronts. You understand? However, you know, and the thing that they tricked Toussaint to go to France. They didn't trick him to go to France. They kidnapped him. They tricked him in a meeting to go on the ship, which he was told not to. You know, Toussaint really, people need to study Toussaint and study what his mentality was. You know, Toussaint was one of them black man that, you know, him really was fighting at the revolution, really, because him did have to. But him still the one be friend with the French and all them thing there. So people need to really kind of come, you know, he's not really a Toussaint lover. He's more Dessalines and Bookman lover. You know them way there. For them man, their mentality. But that's another subject. And people can study that for themselves. You know, the reality is this, and I said it before, the Europeans is only doing what's in their nature to do. That is just the way they are. You know, that man who was speaking, what was it, Marco Rubio? Him. No, him is a Cuban American, you know. A Cuba, that boy that come from, people come from, you know. But the trees in us Cuban them. You understand the Rubio guy there. So it just shows you that you know, you have traitors of all types. You understand me? The US is the mightiest military machine on the planet. And the only way you're gonna defeat them is two ways. Is either them have a civil war and them kill each other, or you have bigger weapons than them and have to force them to the negotiating table. That's the only two ways. And that's not going to happen overnight. You know, the Chinese did learn that. Remember saying, no, in the 1800s, you know, China did lose a war against Japan. Japan invaded them. Russia did that. Britain did that. France did that. Spain did that. United States did that. The Germans did that. You know, it took them over 100 years to claw back their territories and to put themselves in a position now when the boy can't really come run up them out with them still. You know, see it. If Trump feel him could have take China without resistance, you know, without suffering major casualties, you don't think he would have do it? Because that's his nature. Them man are bully. You see, you can't look on this thing as too sophisticated, you know. I say, Madio, you just have to look at it for what it is. He's just a bully with big weapons. You see the man there, if you look at all Bush and Maduro there. I mean, Trump and Maduro there. Look on them. If them two man take off and go in a physical, Maduro kick up him face. Them boy, England, them boy call them man, they wankers. Them man there is some man there who don't have no strength at all. Or just money make them boy they can get with them there. You know, see, them man are no real man. Them man they couldn't fight nobody. You look at his life. But he has the support of a military machine. And that's what we cats like him do. You understand? Them go around and bully people. He won't take over Venezuela. Yes, they have the military might to go in Venezuela, and they may do that. But it won't be easy. But then again, you see, the European doesn't care how much casualties, how much civilians die, long as them get what they want. You think I just aisle them want out of Venezuela? Venezuela, remember saying, you know, they was negotiating with Venezuela, you know, about other rare material where them have. So it's not just aisle them want. They remember said the United States of America have an insatiable appetite for gadgets. You understand? And all them are gonna get the gadget them. Them need the resources to create them. Now in the invasion, you know, I did a bit of research about it. It's 150 aircraft them man they use to invade there, so you know, for do that operation there, you know. 150 aircraft the man them use. You know, see it. Yeah? So it wasn't a little operation. Them say is it 32 or 20? Can't remember, but I think about 32 Cuban soldiers dead in that.
That's right.
And 20 Venezuelan civilians. Some helicopter then get shot up, but they make them way back and things like that. You know what I mean? And a few civilians dead. They don't care about the casualties. And look, anybody, any sensible people, anybody who have half a sense of common sense, and we know common sense is not common, but anybody with half or 1/16 of intelligence knows this is not about drugs. Remember saying, you know, when we say them have satellite. Listen, everybody will listen to this. Sister Shanice, you have a mobile phone, innit?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so where you there now, you know, you can tap in your mobile phone and address anywhere in the world, you know, and you can fix right on that address.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just on your phone.
Yeah.
So compare that now to the sophisticated machinery them man they have.
Yeah.
If them the ones stop drugs are coming at the US, them could stop it tomorrow.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Because most of the drugs is coming through Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You understand me? They want the drugs in there. And let me tell you something from now. They need the drugs in there. Them stop drugs in the United States is civil war. You see the movie where they make about zombie? And that kind of thing you don't see out there. Because they're drug addicts. You understand? It's just an excuse with them man they use to justify their action. Now you play that something there by the sax man there, and they're telling you about the legislation and the rules and regulations that they have in the UN. That just proves my point. It don't mean Jack Daniels. Power is what run this thing here. And if you don't have it, you're fene.
Wow.
With them boy there. You understand? So what we have to do now.
We are at the top of the hour, but
let me just land here, so let me just land here, so
let's hear what we have to do now. Rise up.
Let me just land here, so.
Yes.
And I'm saying this to go to the world, to the African world. Our scientists, them, have to come home. Our scientists have to create a weapon. And they're in the brains of the people, you know. A weapon that will destabilize every machinery that them have. I mean, I talk up because it's not in our nature to destroy the planet and to destroy other creatures indiscriminately. So we have to make one of them sonic weapon there. Yeah. That when we press a button, all them shit does sink. Them submarines stop work. Them satellites shut down. And then the kind of weapon we have to create. Weapons of mass defense. And I land there, sir.
Rise up, Nana. How many aircrafts did you say that took off in that operation?
I think it was 150.
150. Imagine if we did have a button we could have pressed and 150 of those aircraft lost communication, didn't know where they was, you know.
Just drop out of the sky.
Drop out all everything, you know. Rise up.
You know when you watch a scientific, you know when them sci-fi program and you see the supposed alien aircraft come and like everything just shut off. And then the kind of technology we have to move in. Because in order to save lives and to save the planet from them, they are psychopaths. They will make the planet inhabitable for everybody for their insatiable desire to control. And we have to put them under some blows and skirt manners. And me left it there to my sister.
Rise up, Prophet. Thank you, Brother Zizwe. Thank you to everybody in the chat for joining us this evening. You've heard the last call there by our last two callers. We need our scientists. We need our scientists to come home to Africa. We need every African country to have its own, forward thinking. African countries with forward thinking, people-centered, objectives, to have scientific departments where we are building and creating weapons of mass defense. And as Brother Zizwe has said as well, where we are building mass organizations and mass movements at an international level. And where, the masses of the people, as in Burkina Faso, have a clarity about the vision, and they know, what they want for their nation and for their people, so that if any individual from Burkina Faso was to step up and become the leader of tomorrow, they will be continuing to take forward the same vision as the leader of today, because they are all of the same mindset and they know who their enemies are and will deal with them accordingly. So, if there's one thing that today's show makes unmistakably clear, the future of Africa, cannot be decided through chaos, cannot be decided by the US, cannot be decided, by the military might. It's got to be decided by a high level of consciousness and intelligence among the people, us as the people, and sovereignty has to be our priority, and control of our resources has to be our priority as well. If there's something as well that we can see from what's happened in Burkina Faso today and recently, and the coup, more coup attempts are going to come. If we look to see what's happened in Venezuela, other forward-thinking presidents could find themselves being taken out of their beds. They've got to be on high alert 24/7. the wicked enemies of the world, the bullies of this world, you know, will use terrorism and will resort to any cause that they can to pursue their unstoppable, insatiable appetite for power and control of resources. And for as long as, you know, those resources are in the hands of people who are less powerful from them, as long as we fail to come together in unity and strength, we are going to be at the behest of these gangsters, in rogues, in positions of power who are operating as gangsters. But we have also seen that intelligence and vigilance can beat them. You know, having a tight inner circle of well-trained, highly professional military intelligence personnel can beat them. But, you know, we need our scientists, we need the people, we need everybody to fall into place and not be taken in by their propaganda machinery, their efforts to destabilize. We've got a huge job. We haven't even mentioned countries like, you know, Sudan and Congo and what's going on there, but we've seen the extent to which these foreign powers are prepared to go to destabilize our country so that they can control the resources. And family, we've got to look into ways to take back control, to maintain sovereignty, and to join organizations and movements that's raising consciousness amongst our people about what we need to do in order to move forward as a people. Family, got over time, but thank you for staying with us. Nana Prophet Maduti, thank you so much for joining me today. Don't be a stranger. Brother Zizi Wade, don't be a stranger. Thank you so much. To everyone in the chat, please share the link. You know, these are important conversations that we need to be sharing and having with our family around the globe. More strength, more power, more vodum. Tune into the Big G Galaxy Afuri Radio for more conversations and talks like this. And of course, also continue to tune in to the Sister Shanice Show. Bye for now.